Welcome to Cut to the Chase, where we talk about compelling legal, regulatory, and public interest information and news. Your host is Greg Goldfarb, an attorney, entrepreneur, investor, and activist.
All right, folks, it's time for our favorite podcast, Cut to the Chase. And today I am bringing on Kenia Dieguez, a registered nurse who's like medical nurse consultant and still works at a hospital. How are you doing today, Kenia?
Hello, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be in your podcast. Let me present myself. I'm Kenia Dieguez. I'm a bedside nurse. I'm active as a nurse, and also I'm a legal nurse consultant. I have my own business, Legal Nurse Dieguez. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm ready.
All right. And Kenia also, I mean, I don't know how she has all the time to do this. She also has her own podcast, which is called, I want to make sure I get the name right. Talkast?
The name is in the back, Nurse Talkcast. So
Talkcast.
I made a fusion between talk and cast. So it's like a fusion.
Okay, we're going to talk about four things today. How you help lawyers who have legal cases that have medical issues. Like, hey, you get a case. Do I have a case? Was there medical issues? What's the injuries? What can I expect? What type of future medical needs there might be? That's number one. Well, number two, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, Ozempic. And I want to hear from Kenia if she's seeing anything, people being admitted for complications related to Ozempic. Everybody's so fired up about that. Number three, I want to talk about, and maybe we'll only have three things. The documents that you know that patients need to have in the situation where they come to hospitals, they need treatment, maybe they're in, unfortunately in a coma or not with it all together. Let me see if there was anything else I wanted to cover. That's it. Okay. You ready to roll? Oh, well, let's talk a little bit about your podcast to start with. What does your podcast cover?
All right. So basically what I do is it's a podcast created for every professional, medical, legal. It could be attorneys, doctors. So basically the idea is to educate in those matters because sometimes they correlate, but some people do not understand. For example, in the hospital, the needs of legal information, and also as an attorney, sometimes they need to learn related to medical to be able to maybe help with certain case that may be unique, or there is always a correlation. So that's an opportunity to bring all the professionals to participate, and everybody's welcome.
Excellent. So you have lawyers?
Yes.
Yes. What other professions?
So basically, for example, some of the interviews that I have done, I had a neuropsychologist. I could mention his name. He's Dr. Kenneth Kodner. He's he's the medical doctor for the New York Giants. So basically, he helps with everything related to brain injury. So it's a good interview because he explains everything related to traumatic brain injury. And so that's about neuropsychologists, but I also had attorneys explaining certain situations about certain cases. And also I'm going to be bringing some other specialties also from the medical field that they can help us to understand when there is a case, what to do, what to expect, and anybody that would like to participate, they are welcome.
All right. So in my show notes, I'm going to put your show. So if you're a lawyer or you're in the industry and you want to check out all the episodes or whatever, you can learn a lot. Some of this we're going to sort of talk about, like brain injuries and what you do, as a legal nurse consultant in helping attorneys evaluate cases where maybe there is a brain injury. We're going to get to that in a second. Let's talk about the documents. I want, before we get to like the legal talk, I want to get to just the regular person. You're 50 years old, your people, you've been hearing, I should get a will, I should get a, legal living will of this. As a nurse, I'm sure you've seen a variety of scenarios where you know what documents the patient needs so that they can get proper care. And maybe they have it, maybe they don't. Let's go over what you say are the absolute most important documents all of us, no matter how old we are, should have.
All right. So let's put this scenario. Sometimes we have patients that they are admitted to the hospital. Sometimes they are confused. It could be reversible or irreversible. And basically, this patient maybe becomes incapacitated by the physician because they cannot make decisions for themselves. So usually what we do, we will have a proxy. Sometimes we go by the next of kin, could be spouse, daughter, sister, like we basically do it that way. And that person will make a decision. So we do a proxy, and that way, maybe this person could be a DNR, which means do not resuscitate. So that person the proxy could make decisions as well about that. If there is a case of a patient, sometimes happens. We receive patients that come from ICU. Unfortunately, they are in very deteriorating condition that they become what is called we call comfort measures only. It's a patient that unfortunately they begin to become like a hospice patient, and there is a situation that they decline, and that person, that proxy, has the responsibility to make decisions, and that's very serious responsibility. So those are the cases of patients that are per se incapacitated, right? If there is a patient that comes to the hospital that is alert, oriented, able to make decisions, that person will complete a form which is called advance directive. So that you could have advance directive, and if you have like a living will, you can have as well. You can bring a copy, and we can use that as well. That person that has the advance directive, if for some reason, let's say went to surgery, did not wake up from anesthesia, or something happened that they cannot make decisions for themselves anymore, then that advance directive will become a proxy. So that's basically the way we use it, and it's very important because you never know when you are going to need it. Sometimes we have family members that are very prepared, they have all the documents ready, like a living will per se, but sometimes if there is a patient, sometimes we have cases where, let's say it's a homeless, they found that person on the street, maybe was using drugs, or depending on the situation, they come to the hospital. We don't have any emergency contact. We have nobody that could make decisions for that person. So basically what we do, we will have a social worker, so they will help us to assign a proxy. Sometimes they could also use like a guardian that will be the person making decisions. So we call it like a guardian appointed by court, so that person will make decisions. But those are the situations where they cannot find no family member or a person that could make decisions. So that's what happens in the hospital sometimes.
Okay, so let's go back to the advance directive. Somebody comes in, you have the advance directives in case of, the anesthesia, and they don't get up, and, who's going to make the decision. But what about the person that comes in actually in that situation? Shouldn't they already have an advance directive? I mean, there's nothing stopping anyone from getting an advance directive and spelling out, who decides their medical issues.
Well, it depends. Sometimes if it's someone that was admitted, let's say a year before, we keep that in records. We can basically print a copy of that previous advance directive, and basically they will put the initials if they want the same person to be the person in the emergency contact. So
yeah,
that could happen as well.
All right, but is it something that should be done beforehand, before any of us, go to the hospital, or do we have to wait to go to the hospital to actually start, preparing?
Well, in that case, there are attorneys that can help us with those things as well, that they can go and they can have some attorneys, or there are some companies that could help us to have that form completed. Like there is one that they can use via Zoom as well. I think we were talking about that.
Yeah, legal Zoom.
That could be one option as well.
Yeah. All right. So what about domestic partners? So somebody comes in, my girlfriend's in the hospital. do I need to worry about, that I can't see my partner, if things are, go bad or what have you? And is there anything that can be done with that?
Well, that happens often. Sometimes we have patients that they have like a domestic partner, but legally they have no rights, and that it happens this way sometimes, and it happens to me. So sometimes I have a phone call. Oh no, it's a family member. They want to know how is the treatment plan. Is this person going to have surgery? Unfortunately, if that I will look at the records. If that person, that name of that person on the phone doesn't appears to me as a emergency contact person, I will not be able to relay no information, because HIPAA, we need to keep everything private, and that's the patient's right to keep privacy. So sometimes they have to make sure they have that person like legally, or that person is going to sign that patient that is putting the name of that domestic partner. Otherwise, unfortunately, we will say we are not able to relay information.
Yeah. So could you incorporate that in like a living will, an advance directive? Like, what do you, like somebody who's really organized and they have a domestic partner, what kind of document would they have that, basically, resolves that issue?
Okay, well, to be basically that's something that maybe an attorney could explain more in details. It's more like a legal matter, but sometimes they will bring like a living will. That's something that they could bring, but an attorney could help us more, like explaining in details.
Okay. Are there any other issues that you see where documentation is needed and a lot of times people don't have it in the hospital setting? Or have we basically covered most of the scenarios?
No, we covered most of the scenarios. Every case is unique. Sometimes when we have situations that the person could become incapacitated, that's when everything changes, and basically that person, like I said, will become the person making that emergency contact. That person will become the one making decisions, and unfortunately sometimes they do not expect that. It's something that it takes them by surprise, but it's important to be prepared. Sometimes it happens very often. They are not aware of the critical situation, the critical condition that this person could die. We as nurses, we have to be strong, and we need to be. That's how I call it. We are strong, and we are also soft if it's needed to take care of someone. But we need to be strong.
Yeah.
Myself, sometimes I have patients that are dying, and sometimes I go to the room. Those patients, the family members constantly asking me, "Oh, how much longer is this person gonna die?" I always tell them, only God knows when it's gonna happen. We are here to take care of everything that is needed, because at the end of life, sometimes there are needs that we not only take care of that patient, also the family members. They are in denial, and there are situations where we really help, but we need to be strong as well. I cannot be like sad, oh my God, this patient. No, I need to be strong, because I need to take decisions, I need to act, I need to be the one supporting them. So we are in that position, and sometimes nursing is hard for those things.
I can imagine. And Kenya works with the Baptist Health System, and that's where I was born, Baptist Hospital, whatever. So, we have that connection. All right, now we're moving on to part 2, which is medical legal issues and your business, where you help other lawyers figure out what, if there's a case, what the value of their case, what the issues are. Talk about what you do for lawyers and which lawyers you can help out. I mean, we're talking civil, accident, criminal, family, psychological issues. What's the scope of your services?
All right, so basically what I do, everything that is medical, legal, I assist with. It could be related to car accidents, malpractice cases, anything that you have health, that you have any illness, that you have anything medical that I can assist. So usually this is how it goes. Sometimes I receive a phone call from an attorney, or they can also contact me because I'm in LinkedIn, Instagram. I have my YouTube channel, I have my website, I have few ways that they can contact me. So basically, this is what I do. They talk to me about certain cases. They send me the medical records. I will do a review if this case has merit or not and why, and we can go from there. Sometimes we have cases that definitely is a wrongful death or any case that we really see that there is merit, and then also we can do what is a chronological timeline. So basically I will read every single page of the medical record, and by the way, even though for some attorneys it's time consuming and sometimes it could be, you could feel stressed because it's so many pages. For me, as a legal nurse, is a way that I do it as fun. And I'll tell you why. Because for me, it's investigation, it's finding what is the evidence, finding details, because it's not only reading medical pages, it's also analyzing what happens. Sometimes, let's say, per se, I'm reading doctor notes sometimes, and I see that maybe this patient ended up having a heart issue. What do? I need to analyze everything from lab reports. I need to analyze vital signs. I need to analyze everything. Sometimes maybe a doctor was ordering a medication that is causing, per se, hypokalemia, which is a low potassium. And that's the cause of certain heart issues. So I need to investigate everything. I need to analyze, because many times we could miss a piece of information that could lead to the truth of the cases. So it's very important.
All right. So, but do you do, I mean, we've got medical malpractice. We've got people that are injured. First, do you represent just the plaintiff's attorneys, or do you do plaintiffs and the defendant's attorneys?
Anybody that will need my help, I will be glad to assist. And basically, I will assist with anything, like I said, medical related. There are many ways we can assess. Also, I could be the liaison for the attorney as well, because I also speak Spanish. I'm practicing, I'm getting better in my Portuguese as well. And I could be the liaison. I could help with interrogation. I could help with, like I said, I could prepare a report. Also, demonstrative evidence, we can help as well, because with that way we can because sometimes you need to have like a visual explanation, like you need to analyze exactly what happened. Let's say someone that had a car accident. You need to analyze everything related from the moment that person, the EMS took the person to the emergency room. Let's say that person was admitted to the hospital, ended up having surgeries because fractures or whichever condition had. What about if during the hospitalization there was a malpractice, and then that person is going to end up having other issues related to, depending what is the long-term condition that the person is going to have. So sometimes we need to look at it from all the steps, from start to finish, per se, and that way we can investigate and get all the information, because sometimes it happens very often. They could miss a piece of information, like I said. Sometimes we are investigating and we are like, wait a minute, this, for example, I'm reading a doctor note and it's talking about certain, mentioning another physician. I'm like, wait a minute, that records, I don't have it. So I can contact the attorney, I can tell them, we need more records. We can request more information that maybe is important information, but for some reason, maybe they missed it, or maybe on purpose, or maybe they did not know there were more records, they couldn't get it. So we can help in many ways. Basically, we have the conversation and we go from there, what is needed to have a good outcome in the case.
All right. So I want to know the level of complexity of the medical issue that you can handle. You mentioned a brain injury. You did a podcast with a neuropsychiatrist. Can you, like, let's just say I've got a case where, wow, this person really seems like they had traumatic brain injury. Are you capable of taking a look at the situation and doing an analysis for the attorney?
Yes. So that's basically how we do it. First of all, we need to receive the records. We need to read, to analyze. And of course, me personally, I have experience in med-surg, telemetry, everything related to hospital settings. So I know everything, how a hospital works. I can also help with anything related to personal injury, but always related to medical records and everything, we are able to analyze. We will find the ways to get to what we need in the case.
Okay. Do criminal lawyers and family lawyers ever seek your services? And if so,
Well,
what's the scenario that would take place?
Well, I had, it depends on the situation. For example, I was talking to an attorney not too long ago. There was a case of someone that was in jail, and during jail time, there was issues related to medical because this person ended up having a surgery so that could have been avoided. So then after this person finished his sentence and everything, so now he was looking for finding out what happened. And those records sometimes are difficult in the sense that those are, sometimes they're not electronic medical records, sometimes could be like handwriting. So we need to also investigate exactly more like in details and analyze, but that could happen as well because that happens. Medical related cases could be from many ways as well.
Gotcha. All right. And I would imagine someone that's worked in the hospitals oftentimes make mistakes. I know infections are a major issue over there. Are you able to evaluate situations where maybe there's something that the hospital didn't do correctly?
Yeah, so basically one of the important things that is we understand what is the standard of care. Everything has a protocol that you must follow. You must be trained on what is the expected, what exactly someone that have your same profession, someone that has your same training, what are they supposed to do in that situation? And that's what we analyze. For example, imagine there was someone that maybe had a surgery because had an abscess or depending on the situation. What about if that surgeon, which is part of a protocol, did not do, sometimes they have to collect for pathology to investigate what type of, to identify the infection, what type of bacteria. So that way they could understand what type of antibiotic will be required for the treatment. What about if during the surgery, they skipped that part? And then after that, after the surgery, then we need to include an infection disease doctor to help us to put a treatment for antibiotic. But this doctor that we are bringing to the case is doing his best because he doesn't have a pathology report to understand exactly which bacteria you are dealing with. So whose fault is that if because that infection is not treated and sometimes could end up in a worsening of, I don't know, that organ or something that could happen, that could be a complication. So how do I investigate? Let's say I have those type of cases. I could go back all the way to even when the surgery was done, report. So I have to look at all the details and I need to understand there is a protocol for everything and I could identify if there is something missing. So that's why it's analyzing everything.
Okay, so now you've done your analysis. I gave you a case, and I'm not really like a brain injury attorney, but I've got this great case. It looks like there's a brain injury, and I want you to evaluate. And you say, yes, this person is suffering from X, Y, and Z. And then I'm like, well, but don't I need an expert? Do you help attorneys find experts? And
Yes.
also, do you ever testify? Let's go with the experts first, and then we can talk about whether you actually testify.
Okay. So yes, so based on the needs of the case, I could do recommendations. When I do the chronological timeline, I could also include weakness and strength of the cases, recommendations. We can help with everything that is needed or that we recommend that we should have in the case. And yes, I assist with locating the experts. So basically, there are a few steps that we follow for that. And then after that, the attorney will choose which one they will they will understand that could be adequate to work in that case, and we just do like that. And the most important, I can assist in anywhere nationwide. So I was assisting an attorney from New York with a case that we had, and this was related to bariatric surgery. So we needed a surgeon that had experience. There was a case that the person had issues like neurological issues post weight loss surgery. And then we needed to have not only any bariatric surgeon, but also someone that had maybe like this person had like a journal, and they were investigating more in those like vitamin deficiencies and everything. So we need to have specific details of what the attorney needs, and then we begin to look for experts until we find it.
All right, and have you had the pleasure of testifying in court?
Not yet.
Yeah, all right. Well, we're going to get to, you're a young lady. I know we're going to get you there, and you'll have a lot of fun. I promise you. Fun, in quotations. Okay. Well, speaking about diets, that we're going to move on to the third part of this discussion, which is Ozempic and the diet drugs. And I'll say this before you even get into, are you seeing complications related? Everybody's all excited, and you're reading the papers these days, and it's like, wow, they finally found like a magic pill, and I can lose all this weight. What is saying? Why wouldn't I do this? All right. But us lawyers, we're already hearing stories of people really having major problems, some people, and not realizing that these problems could happen, even though we lawyers know that the science shows that some of these problems can happen, and you should be warned before you take anything, what potential complications. We're going to get there. But I want to say this before we even get to like Ozempic and all the other type of diet drugs and what you're seeing in the hospital setting, because maybe you could debunk it. Maybe you're going to tell me, hey, I don't see anything or whatever. But years ago, they had fen-phen. And that's when I was first young and starting my career and sort of getting into the mass tort world. That was the first case that I got. Was one of my accident patients was overweight, and she went on fen-phen, and then she had all these heart-related conditions or whatever. And anyway, so that kind of intrigued me about, the pharmaceutical industry and what are they doing. And anyway, when I learned about the science of fen-phen, I'm like, wow, it's so obvious that that's going to cause problems or whatever. But here we are, 1990, so 30 some odd years later, and now we're up to Ozempic. So talk to me. Are you seeing any problems related to Ozempic? Tell me what you're seeing, if anything.
All right. So sometimes when we receive patients from emergency rooms, so they are admitted to the hospital, depending on the admitting diagnosis, could be abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, depending on the diagnosis. When we do not only when we do the assessment, also when we check for medication, like home medication history, and also when we check doctor notes, there are many ways. Or the patients will tell you, oh, I was using Ozempic. They already know because they know what's going on the news and everything. So sometimes those patients are admitted because they have abdominal pain, they have issues, because what happens with Ozempic is the following. It causes like a delay in your GI system. So it's like hypomotility. So motility is the movement that you have in the GI system. So basically it slows down everything. You feel full for longer time, you eat less, so supposedly you lose weight. But guess what? That situation also make your muscle and your nerve in the GI system like a little more weaker, and sometimes it could cause some paralysis, and many situations could happen. One of the situations also is, for example, the anesthesiologist. I was mentioning that, and it's the following. When a patient is scheduled to have a surgery, the protocol that we have, they have to be NPO, meaning nothing per mouth, from the midnight, usually the midnight before. But these patients may need more hours of nothing per mouth. The reason is because if they are going to have general anesthesia, they still have like food contents in the stomach, and the high risk for aspiration is a concern. So that's things that nobody will think about, but yes, you could have aspiration risk, and that's something that doesn't happen all the time, but there is a potential risk.
All
That's
right.
one of the situations.
So you mentioned paralysis, and that
Yes.
you're not talking about like I can't move. You're talking about like
Gastroparesis. So basically,
gastroparesis.
yes.
And so what is that?
So basically, is that it's like in your stomach, you feel your intestine is basically the food is becomes, let's visualize it like this. It's like a solid mass sometimes, because that food is not moving forward. It's kind of, if there is so much delay that your intestine is not moving, it's not acting properly the normal way you are supposed to eat, have your digestion, everything, and everything is moving out of your system, doesn't happen that way. So sometimes even patients need to have like endoscopy to remove that solid mass of like food that is in your system, and that's causing pain, discomfort, nausea, just to mention a few symptoms. But sometimes that's a situation that they have to come to the hospital, because that's not a solution that they could just be home and it's gonna be solved. They have to have a hospitalization for that, and sometimes it could end up in surgery depending on the level of severity and the condition.
So Ozempic initially, and it's, it was approved for diabetes. But now we realize that, it can help with weight loss. And we're not saying here that, it shouldn't be used at all. I think people need to realize what the potential problems are. And, obviously you go to your doctor and listen to your doctor. But one thing that, just kind of, I guess we talked about even before was uncontrolled diabetes and the complication of uncontrolled diabetes because of the use of this. I think that's what you said before we started today's show. Explain that to me again. I didn't quite follow that.
Okay, so imagine this. The offers of having the Ozempic injection and the promise of you're gonna lose weight, and that's a fast solution, easy solution, that was very, how do I say, like there was a competition. Many people wanted to have that treatment. But what happened was that the real patients, that the diabetic that really needed to have those, they couldn't find the medication, because there was an shortage of on that medication. So what happened then? Those patients that are really the ones that need that medication were admitted in the hospital with uncontrolled diabetic. Why? Because they couldn't have the treatment. So that's situations that were happening related to because this injection was offered in many places, even a cosmetic place, could be primary care physician, someone that could be like a spa place. They could have the offer in many places. So where they get medication from? Too many people. Like the demand was very high, and then the amount of medication was kind of like there was a shortage. So that was a situation that was unfortunately happening.
All right. All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of Cut to the Chase. I just have, as an attorney, one of the first things they teach you in law school is never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and I'm not 100% sure I know the answer to it, although I think I know the answer.
Let's
All right,
guess.
who was your favorite guest on your podcast?
You are my favorite guest. Just kidding.
Good answer. Good
Everybody,
answer.
I love everyone because I learn from everybody.
Yeah.
That's the most important, because when I prepare for my podcast, I investigate, I prepare the questions, I learn. Depending on the specialty, could be medical professional or legal professional, and that's making me understand and have a higher level of understanding in everything related to medical and legal.
All right. So good answer, good finish. I love it. And yes, one of the great things about the podcasting is that you know, develop relationships and you learn, you know, and you are able to take information that you're learning and actually discuss it and be able to have a conversation with maybe somebody that knows the stuff better than you. So it's a little bit challenging, but I think it helps advance you. So this is Kenia Dieguez. She's a registered nurse, bedside nurse, meaning she still works for the hospital, helps out lawyers with her medical legal practice, and also fabulous podcaster. I'm going to drop all of her information. But Kenia, let's say somebody's just listening and they're like, oh, I don't want to read the show notes. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
All right, so let me begin with my phone number is 786-218-9255. I could be found also in, I have a LinkedIn, I have YouTube, I have my website, I have Instagram, Facebook, Legal Nurse Dieguez.
All right, and check out her last episode of her podcast. What a fascinating discussion. All right, Kenia, go back to work, make it happen, and we'll talk soon, all right?
Thank you so much.
Okay.
That's all for this episode of Cut to the Chase. But before you go, will you open up your podcast app and give us a 5-star review? You can also leave a comment about what you liked most or other topics you'd like us to cover. And please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming shows. Thanks, everybody. Be safe out there.